Okay. Well, welcome again to Starting Off Strong, navigating the first year as a new professional. This is the last of a three-part series that we're doing geared towards our early career Niners and soon to be graduates. So, my name is Lori Brazili. I am the Assistant Director for Career Connections here in the Career Center. In my role, I get to serve as one of the career coaches for our technology, data, and analytics career community. In addition to that, I also coordinate career treks for the Career Center, and I am the liaison for alumni engagement. And what that means is I have the opportunity and pleasure of connecting alumni to career services. So if you didn't know, alumni have career services for life through Charlotte, which is a very nice benefit. And then I also get to connect alumni that want to give back to the university by volunteering with us for different events and initiatives that we're doing. So I'm thrilled to have you here on the call. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. So, career skills, it's important now more than ever, especially in today's world, for individuals to develop career skills during their educational journey and into their professional development journey as a new professional. And so, in order to ensure career success, and these are the 8 skills that we want to showcase to begin our conversation today that are defined by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, also known as NACE. This is our national professional kind of umbrella organization for career services. And this is feedback that we get every year from employers that are hiring students and early career people into internships and full-time roles. And so in looking at these 8 career skills here, this topic is really going to focus on career and self-development and professionalism. So let's set some context to start. And so thinking about congratulations, you have, landed your first new grad role, or maybe you're going to be doing an internship over the summer. So some of this may apply, but there's a lot of probably emotions going on right now. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement. There might be some anxiety and just figuring out like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to be successful. And all of those are completely normal. So my goal for you today is really to help provide some insight and a few tools to help you navigate the workplace in confidence. So, with that in mind, here's where we're headed with our agenda today. We're going to start by discussing kind of how to begin shifting your mindset from student to professional. We're going to review professional workplace expectations and communication strategies for early career success. We'll discuss how to build credibility and confidence as a new professional, and also look at how to navigate different relationships and the overall workplace culture. And then finally, we'll end with some simple steps to help you kind of create a success plan for your first 90 days on the job. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I think, there's going to be a significant shift in kind of your mindset. And then also there's a lot of growth that occurs during your first year as a new professional. When you get into any role, whether you're a new professional or not, I would say it takes about a year to learn the job. And so with thinking about your first year, this really is going to set the tone for you in terms of your professional identity. It's going to shape how other people perceive you in terms of being reliable and just working and collaborating with you in the workplace. And it's going to serve as a foundation for building habits for long-term success. So one of the biggest transitions is really now seeing yourself as a professional. And so your assignments or the outcomes or the deliverables that you are going to be taking ownership of now are yours. And so they're not going to be as structured. You're not going to have somebody always telling you, like, this is what you need to do today. This is what is due and when. You have to take that initiative a lot of times to kind of make that ambiguity and turn that into results. And so that's going to require you to be curious, to ask questions early on, and really to take ownership of your roles and responsibilities. So taking that initiative rather than waiting for instructions really sends a message of curiosity, like I mentioned, and that's something that employers not only like, but they expect that in the workplace. And so, kind of along those same lines, the idea here is to be a learner and not a knower. So, what do we mean by that? But when you are getting into your first role or really any new role, it's important that you take time to get to know the team that you're on, get to know the culture of your organization and of your team, and just kind of what the overall vibe is like. It's important that you take notes. So I recommend either keeping a notebook and bringing that with you to meetings or having some sort of digital device to keep track of, initiatives that are going on, priorities, things like that. You can also make notes that you might want to ask your manager at your next check-in with them. So, as an example, it's going to be important that you familiarize yourself with kind of the norms of the organization, maybe expectations. So an easy example is just thinking about, what people wear to the office. If you're in a hybrid environment, if you're in a remote environment, or you're in person, what does that attire piece look like? And so, is it business professional? Is it business casual? Is, casual Fridays a thing? Are you wearing a jeans and t-shirt? Like, what does that look like? So understanding and kind of just being in this space of like getting to immerse yourself in as much knowledge and continuing to learn. Like, learning doesn't stop once you graduate. It is a continuous process. And so really having that mindset when you come in to your new organization is important. Um, so this leads us right into kind of this next topic about professional expectations and understanding that those are really going to revolve around being reliable and dependable. So thinking about like doing what you say you're going to do and following through on that is really, really important. You're going to want to be open to asking for feedback and for receiving feedback. And obviously in a constructive way. So adapting is super important. Again, there's going to be a lot of probably growth that you're going to go through in your early careers, and then especially with how fast things are changing just in the workplace landscape, it's important to be able to flex, and that's going to be an asset for you. So being able to shift gears and kind of be adaptable and flexible with whatever you're working on or what that looks like will really just kind of depend on what's going on in the organizations, because organizations change a lot. So um so that's really important. And then getting to know your manager is a good step with figuring out what some of these expectations are. Always come to meetings with your manager or your mentor, whoever you're kind of reporting to or talking to for advice. Like, always come with questions. That's really important. A lot of times, there's an agenda, or maybe you are the person that's in charge of setting that agenda. But figuring out like what are the expectations for you as a professional in the organization and on that team? What are the goals for your role and the department and the company, and how do those all kind of play and integrate together? Figuring out how your manager prefers to give feedback and their communication style preferences. So whether that's in person, on email, some sort of Slack channel. And then how do they define success? Because that's going to maybe give you some insight into how your role is seen as successful. So really take time to also understand, how you're going to be expected to communicate and just interact with your coworkers and manager. So again, what does that mode of communication look like? Some people might prefer like an in person or face to face conversation. Others, might want to chat you, Teams meeting, things like that. So you're going to kind of figure out what those expectations look like, and they might vary from one person to the other. And so I think understanding and learning that for your team is important. So speaking of communication, this is the number one skill that can accelerate or slow down your career goal. your career growth. And it's so important no matter what you're going to be doing, even if you are working in a field where you're not necessarily, doing communication on like a day to day, or like that's not necessarily baked into your, routine. You still are going to be working with people, and you still need to be able to communicate with your manager. And so I'm of the impression that over communicating is better than under communicating. If you're not sure about something, or you have a question about something, ask it. It's not going to be seen as a silly question. It's actually, again, going to be seen as like taking initiative and just being curious. If you know that you aren't going to make a deadline, or there is something that's getting in the way of the progress that you're trying to make, again, that's something that you want to try to communicate early and often. And then if you need help, I know that sometimes it's very hard for people to ask for help for a number of different reasons. You might feel like you might see yourself as like not being competent, or you don't want to bother people. And believe me, you're not. People want to help other people, especially if it's a teammate. So don't be afraid to ask for help. That's definitely been something that I've had to learn for my experience. And so ask for help, and just make sure when you are asking that you're asking for it early. So, in keeping with the communication kind of message, we also want to think about just email and messaging etiquette. So, your writing is super important. It really is going to become your reputation, whether that is in a hybrid environment or a virtual environment. So, keeping messages clear and concise, structured and purposeful are really important. A clear subject line and a direct ask is always going to be a best practice. You really want to try to avoid sending emails that don't have a subject line. Sometimes, that could be seen as like a spam message, or if there is like an urgency with your email and you don't have a subject line, or it's not clear enough, then you are running the risk of somebody kind of glossing over it and not actually reading it when you need them to read it. So, in addition to that, you always want to make sure that you have a professional tone. You want to make sure that your email and messaging is professional in terms of rereading it for clarity. So, always reread your messages, and then make sure that you are also rereading for proofreading purposes. It's very easy to gloss over a misspelled word, or even something that's like grammatically incorrect. Sometimes spell check can miss some of those things. So just make sure that you're taking time to really check your messages before you email it to somebody. Now, does that mean that people don't make mistakes and are, perfect? Absolutely not. You are going to make a mistake. It's, not going to be the end of the world, but you don't want it to become kind of like a consistent mistake or a consistent issue where like you're known as like, oh, that's Lori. She's the one that never sends a subject line when she sends emails. That's not really the impression that you're going for. So get to know the norms of email communication within your team and within the organization, really before you start kind of inserting like cleverness or emojis or anything like that into your messaging. So context, time, place, and manner, all of that are important considerations, especially when you're starting out. Once you kind of get the feel and the vibe, like I said, of kind of how things operate, then you'll be able to, maybe infuse your personality into some of your messaging. So, building credibility and confidence. Being credible essentially just means that you've earned people's trust. You've earned their confidence and the respect of your colleagues and peers in the workplace. And so it also implies that you are reliable and dependable, and that you follow through on the commitments that you say you're going to do, which is really important. Now, this isn't something that is built overnight, okay? It is going to be something that you're going to, have to kind of build over time. And it doesn't always have to be built with big wins, okay? It can be small things that contribute to kind of the professional credibility image that you're trying to build. And so when you are dependable, like I said, people are going to trust you. That even comes down to like when you make a mistake, own the mistake. Okay. Again, we are not perfect. We're human. We are going to make mistakes. And it's really all about how you handle those mistakes, how you can move forward, what you can take as a learning lesson from that mistake and just own it and say, hey, yeah, I made this mistake. I apologize. This is what I'm going to do to try to prevent that from happening again. People are going to respect that. They're going to respect your self-awareness. And these actions, again, are going to help you to build that confidence that you may feel like you need as a new professional. And that confidence isn't something that is going to be waiting for you. Confidence is going to be built as you take action for something. So build that confidence, take action, ask questions, and then, like I said earlier, be open to seeking feedback about how things are going. And if you get something that is constructive, that could be something that you can work towards. Just know that at the end of the day, your manager or whoever is giving you that feedback is doing that really so that you can, just continue to grow as a professional. So I think building relationships at work are really important, and this really is kind of the foundation of your career. You don't necessarily need to be aggressively networking, or you don't need to be friends with people that you work with. You just genuinely need to be curious and helpful and appreciative to the people that you work with or people within inside your organization. And just kind of remember that saying that people remember how you made make them feel as opposed to maybe what you actually said. And so here are some examples of how you can build positive relationships with people at work. The first is just to get to know your manager and your team. So being naturally curious when you have check-ins or when you have time where you're kind of building that teamwork up, like get to know them, like what is it that they're interested in, what do they do outside of work, those sorts of things. Ask them about something that maybe you see in their office that piques your interest. If you see that they have that they went to school somewhere, or if they have like a coffee mug that has something on it that piques your interest, just get to know them. Introduce yourself to people at the company that you've never met before. And so you meet people all the time in different spaces at work. You can meet somebody in the elevator. You could meet somebody at the water cooler, or at the coffee station. Or a lot of companies have time to built in for like volunteering. So maybe you go and you volunteer with a group from work, and you meet people that way. But get to know them, introduce yourself, and see what it is that they do, see where they work within the organization, those sorts of things. It's also always great to be a team player and offer support. I think for the first, couple of years, you might be saying yes to more things than you want. And again, that's just to kind of get that exposure, get experience, and really show, your dedication as a team member. And then ask somebody for a coffee chat outside of your team. Okay, so maybe somebody on your team or your manager can suggest someone you might want to do a coffee chat with, or perhaps there's somebody that you just heard of that you want to reach out to them for a coffee chat. And that's really to get to know them, get to know what they do within the organization, to learn maybe how what their work does impacts or interacts with what you're doing in your role. And this can also lead to potentially finding a mentor at work, or getting connected to any sort of formal mentor mentee program that might be built into your organizational structure. Participating in groups like employee resource groups or ERGs is another way to connect with people outside of your department. And you're connecting based on kind of, that specific topic of the employer resource group, sometimes, or employee resource group. Sometimes those are identity focused. Other times they might be on a specific topic. So that can give you a good chance to start building relationships with people at work. And then overall, just a good rule of thumb is to avoid talking with people about controversial topics. And so that tends to be like office gossip, politics, religion, compensation, those sorts of things. You want to kind of keep things neutral. So here's a example of an outreach message that you can share if you want to reach out to somebody for something like a coffee chat, especially if you don't know them. And again, I would just, take that initiative and don't feel like you're really bothering somebody, especially when you're early on in your career. People love to help other people, and they also love being asked about their job, about their path, and they love giving advice. And so just ask for like a 20 or 30-minute conversation or a coffee chat. Be specific about what you want from them when you reach out to them. And so here's an example. Hi, my name is, Lori. I'm new to the company and I do this at the organization. I'm trying to learn more about how different units work together. My supervisor, XYZ person told me about your team's approach to, whatever it is. Would you be open to a 20-minute chat this month? So the reason why this works is that it's quick and to the point. It's respectful of the person's time because you're only asking for 20 minutes within the next several weeks, and it's coming from a place of curiosity. And so here are some examples of conversation starters when you do meet people for coffee chats, what that could look like. Again, these are just examples. You don't necessarily have to ask these specific questions, but what does success look like on your team? What projects are you excited about? How does your team typically collaborate with others? What do you wish you had known when you first started here? Is there anyone else that you think I should meet as I'm getting oriented to the organization? And then when you think about having these coffee chats or these meetings with people outside of your team, this doesn't necessarily have to be just kind of a one-time, uh, event. It's something that can certainly be more of a consistent thing or a rhythm. So here are some ideas for maintaining that relationship. A lot of times, people kind of have challenges with kind of maintaining relationships when they meet somebody for, a one-off coffee chat. But sending them a quick thank you note after the meeting is super helpful. Maybe mentioning something that you found interesting about the conversation. Certainly sharing an article or a resource that relates to something that they mentioned. That's a good way to kind of, check in with them, remind them that you exist and all that stuff. If they happen to get like a promotion or maybe they had a successful launch of a product or something where they were recognized within the organization internally or maybe externally, it's always a nice to just kind of congratulate them, send them a note, mentioning that you saw that, and then check in with them on a quarterly basis. You can say, hey, since we last met and we talked about XYZ, these are some of the things I've been working on, or, whatever that kind of message is. And that might be another opportunity for you to do another coffee chat with them if that's something that is something that they're open to. So again, these are just kind of small touch points that can help with like building trust and familiarity within the organization. And again, this is going to help you with kind of navigating that new role that you're in. And so creating a success plan. So I think this is important. So, all of these strategies and tips and ideas are great, but you need to be able to implement them. And a lot of times, we have all this swirling in our head, but we don't really do anything with it. And so my suggestion would be to go through a goal setting process. Now, some of this might already be baked in to kind of your first year or like how the organization kind of positions like employee development. And if it's not, that's okay. You can set these goals for yourself. So a lot of times companies will do like performance evaluations on an annual basis, and part of that process is goal setting. Other times there might be specific initiatives built into the organization that help you with kind of just growing as an employee at that company. But I would say set 3 to 5 SMART goals for the first year. A SMART goal means that it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And so if you can set a goal that kind of meets all of those criteria in that framework, then you're going to be more likely to achieve that goal. And thinking through, what strategies and resources and supports that you may need in order to kind of get to that goal is important. And so I would write that down somewhere, or I would, type it up, stick it on your computer or on your bulletin board or wherever it is so that you always have that there to kind of remind you. And then regularly ask for feedback. So, like I said, building in a feedback loop is important on your goals and making any adjustments as needed. So, with a goal setting plan, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility there to make adjustments, especially if you're running into potential barriers as you're trying to achieve those. And so, setting goals and having a plan is going to help you feel more successful and confident while you're also tracking your wins. And so tracking accomplishments is really important. This is something that I actually do every year, actually every day. I do personally have just like a Google sheet where I track like literally everything that I do in my career, or like in my role, whether that is for my job or as a teammate or outside of the role here, but maybe with like professional development associations and things like that. And that actually helps me to one, see what it is that I'm doing so that I can report on that to my manager, but also when it comes time to the annual performance evaluation, it makes it easier for me to remember all the things that I did. So I highly, highly encourage creating some sort of tracking sheet. And again, it's really not to like say, oh yeah, I'm the best. It's just like simple things, like things that you're doing every day that maybe you don't necessarily, think are significant, but they are. And so keeping track of that, I think is really, really important. And then that way you can reflect on it, like whether that's weekly or monthly, and figure out, okay, I see that, I have this goal and I've done these things, but I haven't done this. And so maybe this is something that I need to focus on over the next month. All right. Well, how can the Career Center help you? Well, we do offer career coaching. Actually, I met with a alum yesterday, and we actually talked about this exact topic. They are finishing a master's degree here, but also they're working full time and graduated with a bachelor's degree here. And we talked about all these things. And so we have career coaching available to students, obviously, and alumni. So we are here to support you, whether you are just getting started in your career, you're looking to make a change, we're here to provide that support for you. So you can schedule a coaching appointment with us through Hire a Niner. And we offer in-person, virtual, and phone appointments. You also have access to our drop-ins. If you don't have time for an appointment, we offer those Monday through Friday from 10 to 3, also virtual and in person. And then all students and alumni, of course, have access to our career and industry events, whether that's a career fair, a networking event, a career meetup, workshops like this, our career guide, which is a self-service tool, as well as additional tools to kind of help you. So we have our big interview prep platform that's available. We have a career assessment tool called Pathway U. We have Hire a Niner, which is our job posting platform. We have a professional photo booth, which is an in-person tool that you have access to, as well as additional kind of resources on our website to help you with doing career and industry research. So we are here to help you, whether you are a student or an alum, and this is how you can connect with us. Okay, so we are located in the Atkins Annex, which is beside Atkins Library. We are on social media with the handle at Charlotte Career Center. Again, we have drop-ins Monday through Friday from 10 to 3, no appointment needed, in person or virtual, or if needed, you can schedule an appointment. All right, so that is all that I have. I'm going to stop recording and